Good evening, everyone, and hello from the wonderful Westmill wind farm, particularly Wind Warrior just there. Magnificent, great thing. I named it after a good friend called Bart Bronson. I met him in Australia, and when we were planning this whole project, he sent me a text message through us while I was in this field. He said, good luck in getting the Wind Warriors built. And so that's how it came to be named after him. He had a dabble in acting. If you Google Suing the Devil, Bart Bronson, he's in there. And he also did a little thing called Russian Water, which is worth looking at. It was rather fun in that. However, I'm not here to talk about Bart. I'm here to talk about someone else. Someone else who's been known to me for 2 decades more. A remarkable friend called Paul Whitehead. You see, where do I start? Crumbs. See, our life wasn't always windmills and Priuses and solar parks. The world's biggest community-funded solar park is just over there. It looks a bit like a lake. You can barely see it. And 22,300 solar panels. Now, backstory. I had a life in Lincolnshire. We had a business building special effects machines, and to say that it all went wrong would be an understatement. One fellow director went down with cancer, though he did survive. Business collapsed. We were swamped by unfair Chinese competition, and I mean basically the stuff came in at 10% of the cost that we could make it. I remember watching a program about people who'd taken their lives, and I could identify all 7 cases of people who'd taken their lives. Well, luckily I didn't. Although it's funny, this is Suicide Week, National Anti-Suicidal Awareness Week. But I came back in an almighty mess. So I went back to Oxfordshire, came here to live with, to recuperate and recover. And I moved in with my mum and their large 5-bedroom house, and basically stared at the wall initially. Got jobs, couldn't keep any of them, and eventually I landed up at the power station, and just threw myself into the machinery. Management loved it. They just left me alone, which is what I needed, to leave me alone. And I tweaked that place so much that I got it absolutely as efficient as I could, because as you might have guessed, I'm a bit of a tree hugger. And now I had somebody who gave me a lot of help while I was in Lincolnshire. An amazing friend called John Goy. Funny enough, he had lost people to suicide and realised I was under a silly amount of stress. So he thought, no, I'm getting in, helping out here. Well, I'm now back in Oxfordshire, in the power station, and then I hear the news on the radio. There's been a massive crash in Lincolnshire. The road's blocked. The road was blocked for the whole day. A skip lorry had lost control on a bend, and it hit a small car. Guess who was driving the small car? Yeah, John. He was so badly smashed up that the keys to his flat wouldn't fit the door lock. They'd been mangled in his pocket. Now, I was off to buy an air conditioner because I had a workshop in the main boiler house. Yes, that house, the one that made the news when it fell down. And I turned up at a chappie's house, and who, if you know him, you'd realise that he was no stranger to tragedy himself. I needed to offload, and because he was basically a total stranger, I ended up offloading. I offloaded the sort of stuff that would be too worrisome for anyone that I knew to be burdened with or any of that stuff, because you got to live with people in your everyday life. And that chappie, Paul Whitehead, did the same. It all happened when I bought an air conditioner off him all those years ago, and it suited us to keep our circles of friends apart. I never knew you lot, and you never knew the friends on my side, including the amazing windmill building team. Well, I then went off to a holiday in Australia, and that's when I met. I was thinking about John. You see, John worked very late at night, so when Australia being the other side of the world, I remember texting him from the footpath of the famous Iron Bridge, the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and that was the previous holiday. Next holiday, I'm crossing the bridge on the bus, and it reminded me of him, and I just started to have a mood crash. Well, I'd been knocked about like you wouldn't believe. Everything had gone wrong. Family, lost my own house, lost pretty well everything, and felt a cataclysmic failure. And I'd been brought up in Africa, and of course Paul has connections with Africa. We have actually remarkably similar upbringings. And of course, don't show your feelings, colonial stiff upper lip, all of that. I just bottled everything up into a big pile of baggage. And it basically metaphorically, it fell through the ceiling. So it needed offloading. Now I'm sat in this cafe at Sydney, and I stayed there for several hours, and somebody realised I was in trouble. And that someone was the chief waiter, Bart Bronson. He gave me a phone number and said, I'll catch up with you on Bronte Beach first thing tomorrow morning. Well, Bronte, it's one beach up from the famous Bondi. And the eastern beaches, Bondi, Bronte, Coogee, Tamarama, and several others. But there was somebody else I just connected up with, and that was Paul. Now, we didn't see each other very often, but you know what? Having that person just out there, I think we were the same to each other, kind of meant something. Very difficult to explain it, but don't know if the word stabilising influence or anything is any good. But, Paul was class. He was class with a small c. He wasn't full of airs and graces and all that tosh, but he was class. And it's amazing to think that I heard somebody was complaining about having a wind farm built in their backyard. They didn't want it. And I thought, don't be ridiculous. I got involved, and that's how this happened. In the end, I ended up being probably one of the people who contributed most of this project. Contributing meaning 8 years of hard work. I was working at a power station that belts out 10,000 tonnes of crap into the air every single day. Burnt a ton of coal every 6.5 seconds. I did feel we have to do something. And the power station is actually just over there. And up until about a month ago, you could actually just see the cooling towers poking up where that bush is just a bit further along, but you can't now. And in fact, as I'm stood here, I'm trying to see the main chimney, but I can't. But yeah, there's definitely a gap in the road. I think I can actually just see it, actually, but it won't ever come up on the phone. But yeah, the solar park followed in 2010. And again, I was a big push behind that. Even though this is Adam Twine's field, he was too busy being a farmer to be able to put the effort in that he should have done, so a lot of it fell to me. So this is my legacy, this wind farm. I'm now working for a company researching nuclear fusion. It's been a spectacular comeback. My world has changed beyond all recognition. Paul and I watched our sons grow up together. he was incredibly proud of Tom. He was unbelievably proud of Tom. He says, I've got a son who's as clever as he is strong. And I'm actually rather proud of mine. He's now a train driver. And they if you measure success and money, they get paid ridiculous amounts of money. But then when you're in charge of 2,000 tons of freight train, you can understand why. It helps that he's teetotal. He doesn't drink. We watched our sons grow up. We would talk to each other about the progress they were making in life. You know, it's crazy. Sometimes we would actually agree to meet up at the pub connected to the Premier Inn in Garsington. I can't remember what it's called now. Silly me. Or where else we used to go. And we'd talk and we'd drink. And he was just an amazing, good, solid friend. Now, I went away on holiday. I went away to Ireland because that's where my mum wanted to show me where she grew up. She's in her 80s now, and she wanted to show me before she passed on. I got to see Grandad's whiskey factory, Jemieson's Whiskey in Dublin. He was there as the chief engineer. You know, the family connection between him as Jemieson's and me, the Didcot power station. It was quite obvious. It's in the blood. Now, what I didn't realise is that while we were away, Paul passed. While I was enjoying my break from Facebook, I was missing out on the whole business of what we're going to do about funeral arrangements and all the rest of it. And I came back. His funeral was the day after I got back. I could have gone to it, but I didn't know it was on. I was quite crestfallen about that, actually. You see, it's strange. I kind of feel I let him down. Not that he's going to know. Now, in the run-up to the holiday, it was rather hot. And funny enough, the last time I saw him, I just dropped in on him. I came up the A34 from where I work in Yalton. I dropped in, and boy, was he struggling. And it was hot. So I thought, you know what, Paul, I've got an air conditioner spare. I can lend it to you. And he said, yeah, that'd be an idea. I had it in the car and everything. I was going to bring it over, and he said, not today. I've got a text message back, not today. Well, I kind of took it back out of the car. And then I went on my holiday. A little time passed. I think I sent another message after that. Nothing came of it. Now, I got back. I got a messenger, and of course, nothing's replied. But of course, I now know he had passed. And so it's funny. It began with an air conditioner, and it ended with an air conditioner. Our friendship. How ironic is that? So I actually put on this Facebook Messenger. I've heard about the news. I was rather sad, and I simply got on. They said, "Well, I suppose you won't be needing the air conditioner now, unless you've been a very, very naughty boy and died and not gone to heaven." And big smiley face and all that. But no, Paul would have definitely gone to heaven, if there is such a thing. I have actually no time for all that religious tosh. It's basically mind-bending crap, but it's comforting. It taps into the fact that we find it comforting in times like this. I hope I'm not waving the phone around too much. I'm not really focusing on it. I'm focusing on telling my story. A lot of people gave me help from dark times. You see that car over there? Another friend of mine was disabled, struggling, and then the Motability people decided they were going to take his Motability car off him, and he went into a very dark place. He started shutting down all his connections on Facebook, and he very nearly ended it all. And when he came back online and heard the story, I said, "Oh, God damn it, we'll scrape some money together, we'll buy a bulletproof car." And that's it there. Well, circumstances changed, and the fact that his family found out, they gave him a smaller car, which fitted his arrangements better. And I've got that for sale. I'm going to show it to another good friend who, funnily enough, just lives over the hill there, Chris Parks. But yeah, it's funny. It's difficult to say actually, because the truth of the matter is Paul and I shared, we all have a two-faced existence. We all have the existence that we present to the world, and we all have an existence that's the real us. And I got to see the real Paul. And in a way, it's a more remarkable person than the stiff upper lip, present an image to the world type thing that we normally have to do. One of the things he said is that he always wanted to make lampshades. He always had this idea that he wanted to make customised arty type lampshades. Me possessing several thousand pounds worth of 3D printers, it would have been perfect for a joint project. But it never happened. I think it's rather sad that it's not going to happen now. He's not going to do the lampshade thing. He won't be able to now. Something else was that I was aware over the last year or so that he was in difficulty. He was struggling. We have a very large house with us, plenty of spare rooms, and even a stair lift to help my 80-year-old mum get upstairs. So, you know, Paul couldn't get up the stairs at the time. I saw him try once. He ran out of steam halfway and had to stop for recover. He was really in a bad way. Now, in a way, it's actually a relief that he's no longer with us. But, you know what, he wouldn't bloody stop smoking, because that's really the part of it. I can tell you now, if he wasn't smoking, he'd still be alive. I lost my dad early to smoking. He wasn't much older than Paul was when he died. But you know what, the big corporations, they don't care. Do you know what? To big corporations, we are nothing more than expendable, disposable people. The big corporate, do you know that the concentration camps in Hitler's Germany were run by private corporations? People are only there to be used. And in a way, although we live in much more comfortable circumstances, they have the same psychopathic attitude to the rest of us. They don't give a monkeys about the planet or us or anybody, whether it's the oil companies or the cigarette companies, all the rest of it. They're all psychopaths. And there's me getting on my environmental soapbox. This whole thing was community funded. It was the first community funded wind farm in the UK and the first wind farm in the south of England. And so it's pioneering. And then the UK government, with all its cronies and high places, shut it down. They blocked onshore wind farm development. They made it possible under the entirely fake, false assertion that people didn't want them. You know, if people didn't want them, they wouldn't allow fracking rigs. But you only have to look at how fracking has been forced on the nation to realise that government's run by big oil. We couldn't build any more of these in the UK, but we've got plenty of them in places like Northern Ireland. Just been there to see one. They're all over the place in Northern Ireland. I'm not kidding. The horizon, they'd be dotted all over the place, and you just get used to looking at them. And they cause no trouble at all. I don't know really what much else to say about my dear friend Paul Whitehead. There is something. His brother Peter. By astonishing coincidence, Peter went to the same school I did, Stanbridge Earls in Romsey. Amazing to think that school is 200 miles away, and we were still in Africa at the time, and Africa was completely falling apart, or Zambia was. So I either had to get an education to be sent over here for an education, or I wasn't going to get one. And so, you know, it's amazing to think that I ended up in the same school as his brother. However, it's rather sad that his brother never made it. I don't know the exact details. But I think the situation with his brother is one of the reasons why Paul was so compassionate towards me. We were very close. And so even though none of you really know me, and very few of my friends know Paul, we actually were basically brothers. Adopted each other as brothers. That's why I'm so upset I missed his funeral. So to that end, I wouldn't mind some sort of kind of get together, maybe on the anniversary, I don't know. I would like a few more friendings on Facebook, particularly from Tom and others. We lost someone in Paul, but we can gain each other. We can gain other people. I don't know how much we have in common or whatnot, but no reason why I can't get to know each other. We kept each other apart. We kept out of each other's circles of friends, for reasons which are now no longer relevant. So, that's why I kind of stuck my head over the parapet and said hello. And my goodness, Paul, I had just gone past where he was on 9/11, 2001. That was 18 years ago, pretty well exactly 18 years ago. I'd come past his place in the morning and then got in, finished work early, and was met at the door by my mum, who was distressed, and said, look at the television, and I walked into the lounge, and 5 minutes later the first tower collapsed. So we jumped in the car, we went down the road to see some friends, and they watched the second tower collapse. I'd been past Paul that morning. From the Millennium Dome and the Concorde crash, and John Prescott and his idiot so-called integrated transport strategy and all of that stuff at the beginning of the millennium, all the way to now. How the world has changed in 20 years. Oh my goodness, hasn't it changed? And Paul has been a constant. I think of all the things that have happened in life, in my comeback, if you so to speak. Got a friend who owned a narrowboat. We drove the narrowboat all over the country, even the Pontcostolite viaduct. Pontcostolite is incredible. It's a cast iron trough on pillars, and I'm not kidding, it's as tall as those turbines. So this blasted trough goes through the sky on pillars. There's lots of pillars, and I'm like, when you go, you feel like you're going through the sky on a boat. It's ridiculous. Pontcostolite viaduct, and incredible thing. And many other adventures. Australia, brother's moved to New Zealand, so now I'm exploring that. And the company who runs a helicopter company that gives scenic tours from the beach. Their main base is actually in the industrial estate opposite where Gavin lives. So one night I thought it'd be really hysterical when they were making their last flight to ask for a lift home from the pub in the chopper. And you know what? They obliged. It was just get a lift home. Or designated pilot for the night. I thought that was hysterical. Anyway, I digress. I drove past Paul's house not a couple of days ago. And isn't it funny how the human spirit works, that even though I knew he was gone, there was still this little kind of anticipation that, I'm going to Paul's, as if he's still there. Well, the house was empty, and then the neighbour pulled up and he got talking, and he told me the details that they'd had to break into the house. I'd still like to know what actually happened, why it is. I'd be interested to know the actual cause of passing. Well, it's a bit like the power station. I go towards Didcot, I think, I'm going towards the power station. The bloody thing isn't there anymore, but that's how inner spirit works. Boy, has this been an adventure, this bloody wind farm. My goodness. There it is, serenely whirring away in the landscape. A glorious day for it. My goodness. The battles and the upheaval and the problems and the yada, 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 yada. You wouldn't think so with it all peacefully turning away here, that it could have been such a battle. But you know what? Because of where I'd come from, I needed a battle. I needed a fight. I needed something to bury my teeth into. It was my fight back, actually, this. Spurred on by that power station that chucked out 10,000 tons of crap every day. I pushed on with this, even more so than the founder, Adam Twine. Adam Twine, another remarkable person, I'm not kidding. He is, you Google Adam Twine, West Mill Wind Farm. He was a remarkable story in himself. You know, Paul was there while I was making my new life back in Oxfordshire. The situation I'm in now compared to where I was then, it could not be more different. And I think of everything that's happened since I got to know Paul. Facebook and the internet and smartphones. I'm making this on a smartphone. And the space plane and threat of environmental issues. And the future, you know, it's a crazy future. On the one hand, you've got fabulous technology, hybrid cars and whatnot. On the other hand, we don't know what's going to happen. The sky could fall in. Although it's showing no signs of that today. God, I do rabbit on, don't I? But I'm glad I did, because I remembered that reminded. I got the chance, the time to remember to say a few things I wanted to say. Like the business with the lampshades, and he was wanting to buy what do they call it? A mobile home type thing. Don't know what they call it. Home park, mobile home, but a stationary one. And I can't get my thoughts together. And we're talking about putting it on solar power and yada 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 yada. We're going to cover it in solar panels. I was going to do that, and it was going to be his retreat. And the house, he's going to put the house on the market. He did in the end, I believe. He had the house on the market. I don't know what's happening to it. And he had all these ideas and the plans. But it's funny, you know, people, even when people are ill, they believe in the future as if the illness is not there. There are people I know who are clearly incapable of achieving now what they would want to achieve, and yet they talk about still doing it. Somebody I know who's now very arthritic, and he talks about buying a motorbike. It's kind of, although it did eventually sink in that no, that was a stupid idea. And someone else I know who's become very infirm with old age and was enthusiastic talking about a narrowboat. Well, those things take a real effort to handle. And but no, on the one hand, it was there was the prognosis was not good. I'd ask him, how's it going? And he said, no, it's not good. The doctors can't do anything. And then on the other hand, he's talking about plans for the future. The trouble is, but then I suppose you can't really give up on life. And I don't think Paul gave up on life until right to the very end. I'm just hoping that he didn't die suffocating, because that is the worst thing, actually, suffocating. I had a problem where my nose kept blocking up with hay fever. And when I would fall asleep, my mouth would drop shut and I'd suffocate, and I'd wake up coughing and spluttering. I got so tired in the night that one night I actually became conscious, but my body wouldn't wake up. So I'm lying there, conscious, unable to breathe, unable to move. And that was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And then the circuit breakers kicked in and I jumped out of bed, and I was so shook up by the whole incident, I went downstairs and rammed 2 drinking straws up my nose to get past the blockage. It actually turned out there was a polyp kind of thing that had grown in it, and went to the doctors and had it taken out, surgery, proper surgery. But you know, I hope Paul didn't die suffocating. I hope he went peacefully. My dad went peacefully, although he had breathing difficulties. In the end, he went peacefully. He was actually up in the morning, up and about, and he stood up, got out the bath, had his head go a bit faint, as he sometimes do. So he sat down, put the lid down on the loo, sat on it just as a seat, and then conked out. And about as peaceful as it gets. Well, I hope Paul's passing was that peaceful. You know what? The fact that he went means you don't have to worry about them mouldering away in old people's homes. I've got friends who have got old people who are losing their entire fortunes because they're having to pay old people's homes, and they're costing £70,000 a year or £100,000 a year. It's absolutely disgusting that people are just taking to the cleaners over old people's homes. And but we won't have to face that worry with Paul. And same, we didn't have to face that worry with my dad. And there you know, that's an upside. It's difficult to think of the upside when you're talking bereavement and loss, but you know, there are upsides, and probably one notable upside is that he's out of his suffering, because actually his life wasn't good. He was struggling, and that's why I wanted to take a moment, look after him, and but it wasn't to be, and so I went away on holiday and I came back. I actually was going to, I was checking in on how he is. I got back to the holiday and I looked him up on Facebook. We got confronted by the obituary, so to speak. And yeah, I felt a bit sad, but I won't dwell on that. My goodness, the amount of friends I've made, the amount of people I've made, got involved with, the amount of stuff I've done, like this wind farm and the solar park, and all the stuff that's happened since I came back from Lincolnshire, basically a bombed out wreck. I was absolutely finished, and then managed to bring it all back. And there's some really wonderful people in our world who have been a part of that. Adam Twine, Bart Bronson, Liz Rothschild, John Goy, the late John Goy, members of my own family, and others, and of course Paul Whitehead. Not really sure if I've got any more to add now, actually. The fear is I turn the phone off and I think, yeah, drat, I should have said this or I meant to say that. But I think I pretty well covered it all, actually. That's a nice picture. Look at that. I never cease to wonder those things. And you can get in here. Yeah, get in the car and come out here. You can park and walk and take the dogs like those two there. It's not forbidden territory, this. There's even a little gate alongside the main gate which is locked to keep fly tippers out. And that was put in specifically by Adam so people can walk the dogs along here. We're rather proud of our wind farm. We like people enjoy it. So get in the car, come over and have a look at it. We even do visitors' days. I know, just bring a picnic and sit under one of these things and watch the world go by. Let's go for a little walk up here. Pay Wind Warrior a visit. There's a big transformer in the base, and then there's a floor inside above the transformer, and that's why we've got the set of stairs. Here's the electronics room. Here we are. Might get a slightly better view of the solar park, but you don't really see it from here. It's kind of low profile. Yeah, I can definitely see the Didcot chimney. There's a little bush about there, and I can see the chimney literally poking up the middle of it, but I won't show the phone. And I can see the two smaller chimneys of the B station, and so that's Didcot. So that there, what I was pointing to, is Didcot. But even Didcot's changed. 20 years. 20 years ago, Didcot was basically just the power station, not much else. There's so much happening in Didcot now, it's just not true. And as they pulled the power station down, they put the signs up, Didcot Historic Railway Town. Well, it's the town redefining its identity. And I don't know how that's going to show on the phone, but it's actually rather pretty. It's amazing how time flies. These turbines are about 11 years old. They're nearly halfway through their life expectancy. It really is amazing how time flies. It doesn't seem like yesterday we put the bloody things up. They're in remarkably good condition for middle-aged machines as well. And bolted down to this lump of concrete. It's a lump of concrete that goes out to about here. Basically, it's like the base of an angled poised lamp. It's just a great big lump. Engineers call it a gravity foundation, but it is basically engineering speak for a great big lump. All 800 tons of it. And It only took about a couple of months for the turbines to generate the electricity equivalent of offsetting the carbon emissions for making all that concrete, so which I thought was quite remarkable. It's amazing, they really do just chug along making electricity. All the fuss and complexity of a power station, instead all you do is you bolt a propeller onto your generator and let the wind blow. It's such a simple arrangement. It's just engineering elegance personified. Sadly though, the psychopaths can't make money out of free energy, so they're trying to push us into nuclear power so the Chinese can steal all our nuclear secrets and all sorts of ghastly politics, but maybe I ought to not go there. Now I'm going back to this old car that I'm now going to offload on someone. You might have guessed I'm a Prius fan. I think they're amazing things. They're bad-mouthed by certain people because I'm quite sure put it this way, when the railways were fighting for their survival during the beaching cuts, celebrities were being backhanded by the road building lobby to slag off trains. And so I'm sure the same thing's happening with hybrid cars. Anyway, I digress. There are certain advantages to Paul being no longer around. One of them is he no longer has to face an uncertain future. Because actually, you know, our politicians can't even sort Brexit out. But how do you think they're going to cope with runaway population explosion and resource depletion and yada, yada, yada? You know, they're just going to make complete numpties of it. The world might turn to America for solutions to these problems, but America has been run by complete psychos now. They're the problem, not the solution. Paul doesn't have to face that. And I take some comfort from that. You see, this isn't really just about Paul. It's about the last 20 years. It's about a kind of where are we in life and a kind of stop and think. Now, that's funny. When somebody passes, that's what you do. You stop and think. You kind of think, well, where are we in the grand scheme of things? Although his situation was made worse by smoking, in a way, Paul is the first friend I've had die of age-related illnesses. He's the first person to die of, not exactly old age, but, you know, I'm a granddad now, I've got grandkids, and he's only 2 years older than I am, and yeah, he's passed on, and that's, but again, it's you know, smoking speeds up the aging process, and he looked knackered, which is sad, because he deserved better, quite frankly. But you know, it's anyway. I won't go down that road. I don't want to talk about it. Well, the sun's not long setting, so I think I'm going to jump in the hybrid and leave it all to it. So I'm amazed actually how long I've rattled on for. I didn't expect to go on nearly so long. I'm surprised the phone hasn't timed out actually. And oh, bloomin' heck! Yeah. My goodness, nearly 40 minutes. God, more rabbit than Sainsbury's. And you know what, I normally don't talk. Whenever there's a group situation, I'm usually the one in the corner with his beer, or maybe I'll find one person and talk quietly. I don't push myself a social situation. Yeah, put me behind the phone in this wind farm and I'll tell you the life story. Give you an indication of the kind of, you know, people who are stupid enough to think they can change the world are the ones who actually do. I'm sitting on the aeroplane going to Australia, and I'm watching a film called The Revenge of the Electric Car. It follows on from Who Killed the Electric Cars. It's all about big oil politics. It's my thing. And I see a Nissan Leaf driving down a dusty country lane with wind turbines standing to one side. And then a little caption comes up and it says Westmill Wind Farm. It comes up in the bottom. And I'm nearly the other side of the world at 39,000 feet, and it says the Westmill Wind Farm. Well, guess what? It's that road there. It's a Nissan Leaf that's trundling down that road there. And this wind farm comes up quite a lot in photos, because it's the only wind farm in the south of England. It's the one everyone takes photos of. So the television companies and all that, and publicity material. We often if we see a wind turbine or a wind farm in as a backdrop to any given situation. Do you know that television program, Country File? Well, funny enough, ironically, he's also called Adam Henson. Well, he was talking about something, and I could quite clearly see in the background this wind farm. And I think he must have been about sort of 20 or 30 miles that way. And do your thing on Country File. And it's just these turbines here. Now, I really must go. We've gone over the 40 minutes. And you know, part of the problem is that I missed out on the funeral. I missed out on the gathering afterwards. I missed out on the going down to the pub for a drink and just talking. And so in a way, this is my way of talking. This is me doing the talking that I would have liked to have done at his funeral wake. And but gosh, that didn't happen because I didn't know it was on. It didn't happen for me because I didn't know it was happening. And that's left a bit of a vacuum when somebody disappears and there's no kind of funeral, no closure. You haven't sort of... So kind of this is my way of filling that gap. I'm starting to get cold now. Doesn't help, of course, that it's windy. It's not a huge wind tonight. In fact, this is perfect video weather, actually. This is perfect weather for making video blogs. I made quite a few for Wind Warrior, stood at the base at. Either it's painfully windy and it's noisy, or sometimes there's no wind at all. Although very rarely, I think I've been up here twice and these things haven't been turning. Most of the time it's spinning around, and wind's always blowing somewhere. And so this has been a perfect evening to talk. And I'm sure I waved the phone around too much. I do apologise. So yeah, I've got to have a chance to have a natter, and life. See what life brings us next. I'll finish with a view of old Wind Warrior there, and cheers everyone. Talk soon. Bye.